Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are, of course, going back to that horrible world known as JRC, but before we do, the usual disclaimers, the trigger warnings, and of course, as happens when I tend to get a little bit annoyed, a brief rant. So, first off, a little bit of adulting today because I have this really weird issue for our little service control box that for whatever reason that I cannot explain will randomly turn off the warm water out of nowhere. And there is no warning. It will go for like a week this time. And then randomly, you're trying to get into the shower. Wouldn't you know it? Only me. Okay, fine. Put in the maintenance request. Get started on laundry. I come back and hear from that. Wait until it dries. Go out there. Wouldn't you know it? The second dryer is stuck. Which means where you put the little quarters in and slam it in there to use it would not slide in all the way. It's jammed. So now, what would have been a very short laundry day is going to take up the majority of my evening because I have to wait for the little load first and then the larger load for another hour. And welcome to Autistic versus Modern Day Appliances. I lost both fights. And this is coming from a person who really do. I don't like things messing up routine. I don't do laundry every day, but when I do, there is a schedule and a specific routine I generally follow every single time. Okay? When something interrupts that routine, it throws me off. If I cannot get myself back to it, welcome, autistic fog brain, and I should not be allowed to operate any major appliances. And the sad thing is, once I'm in fog brain, there's no getting out. Not at all. I just have to stay away from major appliances. Go to bed, and hopefully in the morning, things will fix themselves. So, yeah. There's not a medicine on planet Earth that would be able to drag me out of fog brain once I go there. Believe me, I've tried. Alright. Brief disclaimers, trigger warnings, and to our next sentence. Alright, folks. If you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are right there in the description box, including Neuroclastic's article where they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center's so-called Behavior Modification Program. Now, this did get under the JRC skin so deep that they felt to need to threaten this very small and relatively new autism rights group and neurodiverse rights group. We're talking about, I'm thinking it's about around close to 3 to 4 years old now. So there's obviously something in there they don't want you to know. So being the contrarian, I always am, please read that article. Share on all your social media. If you have it, we also do have link their GoFundMe because unlike the JRC, us advocates and us advocacy groups do not have access to unlimited monetary resources. Anything you can do helps. If not, at least share it. I know that Neuroclastic would definitely appreciate it. Now to our trigger warnings. When we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you are going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, please make sure to utilize the headphones. Alright, folks, one moment. We do not have an edit button, and I am not of the right mindset to be able to, try and learn one. So sorry about that, folks. Alright, but second trigger warning. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your child's 16 and younger and watching this, parental supervision is very much advised, alright? So let's go to the very next sentence. And I couldn't do another video after reading that last sentence, folks. That just blew my mind. How you can manage to skimp both federal and state investigations when you have someone clearly stating in a comment that was, one would think, proofread before being sent to the FDA as a comment, that you successfully tapered someone off of all their meds when the majority of those meds had absolutely nothing to do in regards to assisting EL in regards to aggressive behavior or self-injurious behavior, but were in actuality anti-epilepsy medications. And you list them in there, and then you say you took him off all his meds. How in the name of God you are somehow able to skimp around and not get at least state investigations, if not federal, is beyond me. But it still blows my mind to this day. Like, this is not the CIA. This is not the FBI. This is not a large provider that provides majority services to people with developmental disabilities like ARC. It is one small, tiny school. How in the name of God could any small private school continue to have such seemingly unlimited resources and such immense power and pull? I cannot for the life of me figure it out, but it's shady as hell. Let's put it that way. But let's go on to the next sentence. And it's going to be probably me, once again, going over and saying the same things that I have previously. Because, yeah, like most service systems, whenever we advise or act as consultants, except in very small areas and once in a great while, whatever we suggest or try to get other people to see in regards to our diagnosis, in particular when it comes to doing outside activities, just gets ignored, and they continue to push activities at us that our neurotypical peers would like, but people like me would rather receive a bullet to the head than engage in. I'm not mincing words here, folks. That is a true story. Okay? Just saying. Okay. The successful treatment of EL's SIB and AB allowed EL to engage in paid vocational work, participate in numerous community outings, including amusement centers, bowling alleys, the zoo, and restaurants, and EL enjoyed regular visits and calls with family members and even traveled out of state to spend holidays and vacation with his family. When you can tell that the JRC is willfully continuing after all these multiple decades to not get the point. And you have to explain to them for the gazillionth time what the hell masking is, how it works, and how in actuality being good at masking and fooling people to being something you're not is not evidence whatsoever to progress, continues to elude the neurotypicals, even though it's been explained to them in detail by pretty much all of us multiple times, starting from Temple Grandin, I'll explain, John Elders Robinson, myself, the GOATs, the OGs of the movement, starting to our most current generation in ASAN, Neuroclastic, Nova, ARC, Burl, People First, and they're still not getting the memo. Well, I see what I want to see, so obviously that's progress, right? No, Karen. If the trigger that's causing the behaviors is not being dealt with, but what you have instead are young kids forcing themselves to give Oscar-worthy performances in regards to acting neurotypical instead, which takes any massive amount of effort, brain power, and conscious note of every single detail of every single interaction, no matter how big or small. And not just that, but you got to take in all the smallest to largest details to the environment around you at the time. It's soul sucking. It's exhausting. It exacerbates an already drilled into us from very young ages even more self-loathing and self-hatred. And it leaves the real issues that were leading to those behaviors in the first place undealt with. What happens when instead of actually working through your problems, you suppress them for extended periods of time and ignore them like they don't exist? What happens if on top of that you are over exhausting yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally to put together an act that you have to keep up 24/7 on top of it? What do y'all think happens? Because eventually, no matter how good you are or how good your endurance becomes, the mask drops. What happens when the mask drops and that overexhaustion creeps in, and at that point in time you just don't have enough anymore to keep up the act and continue to use all that energy to suppress on top of pretending to be someone you're not? What do you all think happens? I will tell you from experience, like I've told you all many times before. What happens is, at some point, you no longer have the enough energy, willpower. You are running on empty. You just don't have enough to keep it up anymore. So what happens is, not only does the mask drop, but everything that has been surpassed. And for me, it was literally multiple years of suppressed shit that went undealt with. That I did not have the energy, the capacity, or the ability to continue to suppress anymore. So it just all came out in a wave after wave after wave. What do you think happens? Psychologically, physically, emotionally. What do you think happens? The medical term is called regression. The neurodivergent term is autistic or otherwise neurodivergent burnout. When that happens, all of that shit, the emotions, the self-loathing, the anger, the rage, the pain that has built up for years gushes out of you. When that happens, all those emotions you've held back then interacts with the not fun part of your diagnosis, and you no longer have the energy to even mask, not only do all those behaviors come back, but because now of all the emotional suppressed baggage that comes with it, those behaviors come back more intense and more dangerous than they ever had been previously. Because suppressing things and masking is not dealing with the problem. I'll say it again, it's sticking a band-aid on a wound that needs stitches. Okay? It only holds for so long. When the dam breaks, and it will, it's always just a matter of time. Not only do you find out none of the triggers have been dealt with, but now they're all firing at once. And now they're being fueled with anger, rage, hatred, both of the people around you and hatred of yourself. And yeah, that's why at 16 years old, when I was finally got out of the situation I was in, why I regressed so horrifically and totally, where skills I had obtained and had been doing for multiple years, I no longer had the ability to be able to do. Simple things. You know how embarrassing it is to have to re-potty train when you're 16 years old? And your father's middle-aged and he has to help you? Yeah. Yeah. Masking and suppressing of behavior, pretending to be someone you're not, is not progress. Eventually, the dam's gonna bust. And the consequences of it is the behaviors are going to be they're gonna be worse, and they're gonna be more dangerous. And on top of it, depending on how long you had been forcing yourself to do it, if it was an extreme case like what I went through at 16, you regress. Big time. That's not a joke. I don't find it funny. The level of sheer embarrassment and the even heightened self-loathing and blaming myself for things that were out of my control at the time. It just added fuel to the fire. If you do not deal with the triggers directly, then whatever it is you think you are seeing, whatever you think is actually progress, is a lie. It's a fantasy. It's when we listen to you and we take all these things and we use it to craft a fan-fictionalized neurotypical character for you. The amount of energy and effort that goes into that, and being able to maintain that for long periods of time, unless you've actually been through it, there's no way to explain it to neurotypicals in a way that you all would be able to understand. Okay? So no, just because the behaviors went down, yeah, that tends to be what happens when someone has the threat of corporal punishment violence hanging over their heads 24/7 like Damocles' sword. We're also going to learn real quick as means of survival exactly what it is you want us to appear like at every given situation at any given time, so that hopefully, possibly, we could skip whatever abuse you had planned on enforcing upon us for whatever small thing you think is a slight. Believe me, I know. I've been there. Okay? Now, and it's not just the JRC. The medical model does this too. I'm going to attack it from two different wavelengths here. First off, masking in a capacity to just get your care staff and your parents off your back for extended times is exhausting beyond all reason. When you add to that they want you to be a social butterfly on top of it. Oh, and not just that, but you have to be happy and like it. And you have to think that it's fun. And the reason why they want you to be that way is because that's what they think. Not what is real in actuality, but what they think a neurotypical kid would like and want to do and be. So we'll give you what you want. We will show you what it is you want to see. We're fast learners. And unfortunately, some of us get a little too good at it. Because later down the line, we get to deal with fun identity crises, trying to figure out who we really are underneath all the masks we've had to create over the last several decades. That's always fun. That's why, like, by the time I hit middle school, I just stopped masking. I just stopped caring. Drove my aunt completely nuts. But by that time, granted, I did some small masking, yes, just not to the same level. I leaned very hard into my nerdy nature, let's put it that way, and kind of made that the most prominent thing. So at least I could have something in there that was actually coming from me instead of the persona I created to get people to leave me the hell alone. True story, that. So what does that tell us? That means if we have to make you all think that we are enjoying an outing, but also be socially engaging and acting like we enjoy that social interaction and look like we're having fun, that's what we're going to show you. It doesn't mean we are actually enjoying ourselves. This is, again, another episode is I'm going to show you what it is you want to see so that afterwards I will get several mitigated hours, fingers crossed, of you people leaving me the fuck alone in my room with no people where I can be my own authentic autistic self in peace. Let me give you some examples here. Things we were forced to do, right? Don't you want to go on a fun outing to the mall, Tiff? We could go shopping and look at clothes. I would rather be shot. From a relatively young age, I developed a special level of hatred for shopping, in particular clothes shopping, that I've literally had ever since. I have joked now since starting around age 19 that every mall in America should have like a concrete words in front of it and chiseled in there from Dante's Inferno, if you've ever read The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, that says, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." I hate clothes shopping with the entirety of my whole soul, and I say this with my full chest. You all don't know. You all don't know. I despise it with the entirety of my being. But you talk about retail therapy, Tiff. My retail therapy is getting a soft pretzel to stuff my face with and spending long periods of time in whatever new bookshop has opened in the mall that is my one safe spot. An entirety of a public place that I despise. Or it's going down to Ruby Tuesdays and getting one of two menu items that I switch back and forth with whenever I go there. Because I'm autistic, that's kind of what we do. We have one or two plates that we have at each of our favorite restaurants. We usually don't deviate. At least that's been the case for me. But you see my point, right? But the mall, isn't that what kids do to have fun? That's what neurotypical kids do to have fun, Karen. You want to know what I do to have fun? I like watching documentaries 24/7 on ancient, Dark Age, medieval, and Renaissance history. The drier they are, the better. I like reading books. Literally, the series I'm working on right now is Cambridge, as in Cambridge, England, medieval textbook series, where they teach classes out of their University of Cambridge. That's what I'm reading right now. Well, that I'm usually studying some form of theology, whether it's Hindu or Kabbalic or ancient Egyptian, Roman. Theology is interesting to me for the same reason that human psychology is. I don't know what to tell you. I've been obsessed since I was 10 on all of those subjects, especially since they all seem to run together seamlessly. You know, that's what I like to do for fun. One of the few actual public outings I actually enjoy is going out to our theme park in Branson at Silver Dollar City. Because it's a safe space, folks. Because we're friends with the Hershans. We've gone to school with the Hershans' kids and their grandkids. It's a safe space that's themed off of 1800s Midwest history. The ride Fire in the Hole is actually based off of an event that took place right on the grounds where Silver Dollar City is. Okay? It's a safe spot. It's fun. I get really cool things from there. I get my Angry Lady sourdough fresh bread from their bakery. And it is glorious, okay? It's the one social thing that is considered normal that I actually enjoy. But what about going to the mall? I'd rather be shot. What about, I don't know. You want to go skating? Do I get to be alone? No, you have to go with a group of us. I'd rather be shot. What about bowling? Did I stutter? Now, granted, I've been called fake because I have gone to social events like concerts where I've interacted with other people. When I used to go to concerts, I was also a raging alcoholic. Alcohol had a weird way of desensitizing me to whatever environment I was in. It was still painful, it just didn't bother me as much. And for whatever reason, it helped me to focus on the music more. And I know a lot of the local bands here. Like Trash Angles, Howie and the Hellcats, Mike Soup from the Ozark Mountain Daredevils will come and play. And I know that the Daredevils come down usually about once a year to the Ozark Fairgrounds during the summer festival. That sort of thing. Music is different. The alcohol helped. I don't want to go to the mall. I don't want to go to the zoo. I don't want to go shopping anywhere. I don't like being dragged to places I never wanted to go to. I don't think it's a fun outing to go shop for clothes. You see what I'm saying, right? But I would fake that I did. And the only person who could tell that it was fake was my mom, who's more antisocial than I am. Thank God. That's why I don't mind going out with her in public. She has this effect on people because people have always stared at me and talked to me like I'm six around here. But she has this aura that kind of like radiates out, and people just start parting like the Red Sea. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. But you get my point. I would not volunteer to engage in those types of activities. I would skip them every time I got a chance. when I lived at Crowhaven in particular, but I would force myself to go to at least 2 of them a month because I knew if I didn't, I would be scrutinized and not left alone for weeks on end. And the end goal was truly for people to leave me alone. Okay? So, when I'm out in public with something that obviously I don't want to do, I don't want to be there, I don't want to talk to random strangers, I don't want to smile and act like I'm having a good time when I am dealing with oversensory issues. I don't want to do it. But if I put in a couple of hours and pretend that I do, and then come up with an excuse to leave early, it means that I've put in my appearance and people will leave me alone. So, them saying that it's this great reward, this device has made it possible for them to go and live publicly, shows me how brain dead and out of touch not just the JRC, but a lot of direct care staff and community integrators really are, especially when it comes to us autistic folks. By the time we hit teenage years, there's a long time when we're kids. We want to be social. We want to have friends. By the time we become older teenagers, we don't want to hang out with the people who have horrifically bullied us for years on end. We don't want to force ourselves into situations of sensory hell to try to gain favor with folks that we already know despise us. And by the time we're teenagers, folks, we have those people down. Okay? It's not a reward. It feels like a punishment. Okay? One of the great things about being autistic and being 40 is these days I put in my appearance about 2 to 3 times a year, and every other day outside of, earning income, I can do whatever the hell I want. Best freedom on planet Earth. You'll have no idea. No idea. The relief. But yeah, I bring this up because they're using it as a sign of improvement, while continuing to ignore the multiple voices that have told not just the JRC, but the entire medical model for more decades on end than I care to count at this point in time, that it's just a mask. And we're tired of masking. And we don't want subsequent generations of autistics and other neurodivergents like us being forced to mask, over exhausting themselves and burning themselves out, doing the same thing over and over and over again, and usually not until like late teenage, graduating out of high school years, finally find one staff member who's actually sane. That's why we do these things. But they never listen. But parents, I'm asking you to listen. We're not neurotypicals. We do not enjoy the same social things neurotypicals do, and we're never going to. We need to know and give permission in regards to rewards to do the things that we neurodivergent people want to go out and do. And even if, to help with social development, we sometimes do have to do the public things, I use my mom as an example. In such cases, create those types of safe spaces. Favorite similar restaurants. A favorite theme park. Our mutual favorite bookstore that's right off the corner on the other side of the mall. That also has a kick-ass coffee shop. Or going to the library that's up on the highway almost outside of town heading towards Nixa. Okay? Because you putting in these so-called normal activities, and because we're masking, you think we're enjoying them, and then you start getting worried when your kid starts looking more haggard and more tired as more of these outings are so-called successful. Please listen to my words. Stop forcing us to do neurotypical shit. Ask us what we would like to do. The worst you can do that will actually reverse any form of progress is force us into social situations that we do not want to be a part of on repeat. Because not only does that build exhaustion, it builds resentment and anger. Okay? Now, I know that has nothing to do with what we're reading here. It's just something I wanted to throw in. Because the medical model and the JRC somehow have this bizarre idea that if we are able to go out and do those normal social things that other kids your age do, and we can fake well enough, that means, well, obviously they like it and they're doing everything right and it's successful. Karen, do you not see the bags under our eyes? How about someone like me that would rapidly, due to the stress of it all, drop 10, 20, 30 pounds on someone who was already way too thin for their age because you were put on Ritalin since you were in the 2nd grade? Stop assuming. Start asking. Stop assuming because we can do the normal social things that neurotypicals do. That just because we can do it doesn't mean we're actually enjoying it. And if it looks like we are, but there's kind of that absent look, and parents, I know you know what I'm talking about. It's the empty smile. Sometimes the over exuberant happy smile with empty eyes. The fake jumps that looks like hyper excitement, like it's being overdone. It's because it is. We don't actually want to be there. We're not actually enjoying ourselves. Okay? Stop making us do this. It's beyond tiring that we essentially have to work a full-time job that we don't get paid for to accommodate everybody else but ourselves. Alright? So, in regards to that device, the torture we put them through make this possible for him, forgive me if I'm not leaping for joy that because of a torture device hanging over their head like Damocles' sword, not only are they exhausting themselves masking, but they have that extra pressure and extra draining of energy to try to make every single interaction they do during those outings seamless and without a hitch. Because, or else, that's not progress either. That's people willfully buying the fantasy instead of being willing to do the work. It's also in regards to a bunch of people who do not want to accept that we are different from the neurotypical kids, that we are never going to be like those kids. And that's not a failing on our part. Some of us get into some very interesting things that maybe you might like to get drawn into with us. Stop forcing things. We're going to close out on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. Please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please, folks, don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. As always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I gotta pull the small load out and put the big load in the other dryer, and I'll see you all in a minute. Caesar, we who are about to die salute you. Bye-bye, everyone.